It's every millennial's dream, the return of the traditional rom-com. The series on Netflix called Nobody Wants This has taken the world by storm. It stars Kristen Bell and Adam Brody, who is like one of the most classic millennial teen heartthrobs. I definitely had a crush on him when I was younger, especially in the early aughts. One could argue that was like the peak of his career. But this show, Nobody Wants This, is about an agnostic sex podcaster who falls in love with a Jewish rabbi, and it's about the obstacles they face. So warning, spoilers ahead here. Today, we're going to talk about why so many people loved the show and why it's had such a successful reception on Netflix. And then I'm going to go over two things in particular that I really liked and that actually gives me hope about the current state of our culture when it comes to dating, relationships, love, etc. Okay, so during its second week on Netflix, Nobody Wants This secured the #1 spot on the streaming platform. It got 15.9 million views compared to the 13.1 million views that Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story saw during the week of September 30th to October 6th. But other than the views, people are talking about this show everywhere. There are memes everywhere. There are clips everywhere. Everyone has an opinion about Nobody Wants This, and most of the opinions are highly positive. So let's dive into the two major things that I think made this series super easy to love and what these two things tell us about the current state of our culture. Number one, the best thing about Nobody Wants This is that there was no activism. The writers were not trying to sell you on any political stance. They were not shoving some Marxist narrative down your throat about oppressor versus oppressed. And even though we're all kind of sick of hearing this word woke, for a lack of a better term, there was really nothing majorly woke about this show. There was nothing woke that was shoved in your face the whole series. It was just two people meeting, falling in love, and facing the challenges that come with that kind of relationship. I'll admit I was a little bit apprehensive about watching this initially, even though I was looking forward to the series. I really like Erin Foster, who's a creator of the show. I think she's so funny. Side note, I really actually like her fashion brand, Favorite Daughter. However, I was concerned that there was going to be a lot of political messages shoved down our throats because there's a very heated discourse right now online about the Palestine-Israel conflict, right? So I was half expecting there to be messages splattered all across the show about how a certain group of people is mistreated, blah, 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 because the main character of the show is a Jewish rabbi, and that's like a major plot line of the series. I was pleasantly surprised that there was actually really none of that. There were a couple of jokes here and there that were very appropriate and funny. That scene where Joanna and her sister are in the front of the car, and then Noah and his brother are sitting in the back, and then Joanne's texts are accidentally read through the speaker on the car, and her sister's like, he actually doesn't really look that Jewish. And then the brother in the back said something like, what, does he not look like he could run the media? So there were little things here and there that were kind of funny, but there were no major messages that spoke to a political activism, which is actually pretty rare because these days in a lot of series and TV shows and movies, people are constantly feeling like we are being sold a message. We are constantly feeling like there is some kind of political activism that is running the script, that is running the show. And even shows like Acolyte, these Star Wars series, they're getting canceled because they're constantly trying to gayify the show. They're constantly trying to make all these radical political feminist statements, and these woke narratives have actually become the primary purpose of the script, which just makes it unwatchable. It makes it unlikable. I mean, look at the whole Snow White live action remake debacle. Rachel Zegler went on a whole rampage during her initial press tour talking about how it's creepy, that it's a love story, and this is a new modern tale. Well, we're not going to have a love story because Snow White is independent and she's a leader. And nobody wants that. It fell flat because nobody wants these woke feminist narratives anymore. Nobody Wants This, on the other hand, was carried by its characters, its charm, its script, its story. There was really nothing majorly annoyingly political about it. And that is so refreshing. You could just sit down, settle in, grab a snack, curl up in a blanket, and watch this really cute couple fall in love without any sort of like hidden political agendas. Number two, what I loved about Nobody Wants This is that it was actually about a healthy relationship. Okay, whether we like it or not, Hollywood plays a big role in the way that American culture approaches relationships, the way that we talk about love, the way that we talk about dating and marriage. And unfortunately, a lot of the rom-coms that are really famous and beloved today, or even not even rom-coms, but romance stories, a lot of these are based on toxic, dysfunctional relationships. And we're just supposed to be like, oh, cute, ha, ha, ha. These people are in a very unhealthy relationship, but it's so romantic and lovely and yay. So for example, some of the most famous rom-coms or romance stories from the 90s or early 2000s, The Notebook is like the classic story. It just celebrated its 20th anniversary, something like that. And people are finally revisiting the story, and they're like, actually, it's a pretty unhealthy relationship. Allie cheated on her fiance with her ex-boyfriend, Noah. And yeah, I know the whole story is like Allie and Noah are meant to be together, but you could have broken up with your nearly perfect fiance before you went and had mind-blowing sex with him. But of course, this is like the end-all be-all of love stories, and it's based on a lot of dysfunction and based on dishonesty and infidelity. And there's something like Runaway Bride, right? This girl has a very toxic relationship with all of these boyfriends and soon-to-be husbands that she leaves at the altar, incredibly dysfunctional. And then she falls in love with Richard Gere, who she essentially cheats on her fiance with when they're in the wedding rehearsal. Again, very toxic, dysfunctional. Then you have movies like My Best Friend's Wedding, where another Julie Roberts movie, where she's trying to steal the groom away from the bride because she realizes she's in love with her best friend, but doesn't have the guts to actually tell him. Toxic, dysfunctional, not a healthy thing to base a relationship off of. And even cute little rom-coms like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, one of the most famous rom-coms from the early 2000s. Crazy, but cute, but still crazy, very dysfunctional. And then you even talk about like the most recent rom-coms. You know, there have been a couple of stories and movies that have come out recently that are kind of trying to reclaim the classic rom-com. So you have something like The Idea of You, still kind of dysfunctional. You know, they have to like sneak around because of the age gap, and she feels guilty about hiding it from her daughter, and then all the paparazzi. You know, it just doesn't seem like the most healthy relationship either. And then that movie with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell called Anyone But You. Initially, they hate each other, and there was like a lot of this like weird competition between them, and they were essentially presenting a lie and a farce to everybody. Do you see what I mean? So a lot of these famous rom-coms and romance stories, like they're cute and fun to watch, but at the end of the day, we have to admit that a lot of these stories are pretty dysfunctional, and these are the stories that we are presenting to young people, to young girls, as if they are these like wonderful, beautiful romance stories. But then you watch Nobody Wants This, and it's about two adults who are intentionally trying to step into a healthy relationship. They want to communicate with each other. They don't want to make the same mistakes that they made with their previous relationships. They want to be very honest. Noah talked about how he felt like it was very surface level with his ex-girlfriend, Rebecca. And when Joanne finds that little box of like ex-girlfriend stuff at Noah's place, she does the healthy thing and she brings it up to him and they discuss it. It's just, it's a healthy dynamic, right? And of course they have their little bickers here and there, and she gets the ick factor, which we could do an entire episode on because there's this whole thing called the ick factor that I'm actually very fascinated by. Everyone online is talking about the ick factor, and I think there's a lot to say about it. So if you want me to do a video on the ick factor, let me know in the comments section. Maybe it's not interesting enough to do an entire video on it, but I find it to be a compelling topic. So let me know what you think. But anyway, it's intentionally a healthy relationship. And I know when it comes to watching a movie or watching a series, the fun of it is that the characters are a little bit chaotic. But I think Nobody Wants This is so charming because they managed to get a lot of excitement and humor out of characters that seem to be very healthy and want a healthy relationship. And I think that's something to celebrate. I think that's something that we should be talking about in a big way. Side note, another small thing that I really liked about this show, and maybe this is a number 3, but let's just make it a side note. I really liked that there were no gratuitous sex scenes. Call me a prude, call me a grandma. For those of you who have been on my channel for a while, you know who I am. You know, I always joke that like Auntie Gina is the prude, but I am honestly sick and tired of all the gratuitous sex scenes that don't contribute to the plot. I don't want to see naked bodies flailing around everywhere. I'm actually sick and tired of seeing people shove their tongues down each other's throats, and I think we could do without it. I do. And here's the thing. All of the rom-coms that we loved in the early 2000s really didn't have that much sex in it. Most of them didn't. It was just some kissing. You know, they implied that they're going to sleep together and they woke up the next morning together, whatever. But there was no over-the-top exaggerated sex that was just thrown in your face 24/7 in those old school rom-coms. And I kind of like that we're revisiting that. Joanne and Noah, they slept together and it's obvious that they did, but there were none of these gratuitous sex scenes. And I actually really like that about this show because it makes it more watchable, it makes it more digestible. I am that person who I cringe. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to see these people simulating sex and humping each other on camera. It's just not appetizing. It's not convincing. And most importantly, it doesn't even contribute to the story and to the plot line. But there was something about this show that felt pretty nostalgic, right? And first of all, it's because it starred these millennial actors who are now in their 40s. Like Kristen Bell and Adam Brody, I think, are both 44 years old. They're in their mid 40s. So of course it feels nostalgic that you see these actors who we've loved for the past 20 years appear in this Netflix series about love. So Kristen Bell, she starred in rom-coms like Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Couples Retreat and When in Rome. And Adam Brody, like I said earlier, arguably had the peak of his career in the early aughts when he starred in The OC, Gilmore Girls, and he was like such a teen heartthrob. Everybody loved him. He was so adorable back then. I think he's even better looking now. But that's the thing with men sometimes, men are just so lucky. Many of them look better as they age. I've always thought this, even when I was like in my early 20s, I was like, I feel like men look better as they age. I don't know if you guys agree with me. But anyway, I think Adam Brody looks better now than he ever did. These are very millennial coded actors. So if you think about the sort of Gen Z new crew of actors that are popular now, like the Sydney Sweeney, Zendaya, Tom Holland, Jacob Elordi, who else? Timothée Chalamet. These are all like the Gen Z stars. But it's interesting that Aaron Foster and the other creators and producers of the show, they chose two millennials. Like they could have chosen sort of these younger, more popular Gen Z actors, but it's interesting that these two millennial stars kind of made a comeback in a sense, and it was a massive hit. But aside from who was cast, I think another thing that really brings back some nostalgia is sort of these threads of traditional masculinity that are woven through the series. So let's talk about that famous first kiss scene between Joanne and Noah.
Kiss has been a really funny, it's not like a point of contention, but it's been a point of discussion. Adam really didn't want to tell her to put her ice cream down. And it was really important to me. And I basically made him do it because he thought that it was like, why am I bossing her around and being a dick and telling her what to do? And I was like, no. It is hot. It is so sexy because you're this sweet guy and you're emotionally available and you're kind. And you need to be able to say to her, okay, you want me to kiss you? Put your shit down. I'm about to give you the best kiss of your life.
Hand me your ice cream. Put your back down.
And then once we did it, I think he really understood why it was so important to me.
See what I mean? Yeah, that kiss was hot. Okay, even before I knew the sort of behind the scenes discussion about this scene, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, that's so cute. That's hot. Because it's hot when a guy takes charge and takes the lead. Yeah, that's cute. And we're living in this weird time where up is down and down is up and there are no traditional gender roles. But at the end of the day, it is hot when men lead because that's what men are naturally designed to do. Okay, on my channel, I don't play the game as if men and women aren't different. We are inherently different. And one of the best things about men, in my opinion, is they are designed to lead and to protect and to take charge. And it's a wonderful thing. That's not to say that women can't ever lead anything. Okay. So let's not be reductive here and say these things are mutually exclusive, but it is hot when guys lead. So I remember watching that and being like, yes, okay. And there's something about that in and of itself that's nostalgic because even if you think about a lot of the Gen Z actors that are super popular now, it is a kind of a popular thing to be more feminine, to be effeminate. Look at Timothée Chalamet, Harry Styles, that is a trend now. Some of the most popular Gen Z celebrities, they have this sort of effeminate thing about them. And there's something nostalgic about this scene and the show in general because they have this thread of more traditional masculinity here. So it's not nostalgic only because you have these millennial actors who are in their 40s and they're making a comeback. It's nostalgic because there is a sort of old school piece of masculinity happening. And it is such a nice thing to see because women are sick and tired of soft men who are afraid to overstep and afraid to offend and afraid to come on too strong. At the end of the day, women want to be swept up by a man who is confident in his masculinity, who doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, but who really enjoys leading a woman. And you can't deny that that's what the audience wants. The audience loved the show. I mean, the ratings were through the roof. Everyone's talking about it. Millions and millions of people tuned in. Everyone's talking about this kiss, how hot it was. Because remember, naturally, the masculine is the giving energy and the feminine is the receiving energy. So the fact that this series performed so well and hit home for so many people gives me hope. The people have spoken. Classic rom-coms with a cute story are so much more desired than the feminist, ultra progressive narratives with a political activist message being shoved down our throats. Okay, so maybe Hollywood, it would be nice if you took notes. Can you take notes, please? Because this is what people want to see. Season 2 of Nobody Wants This has already been greenlit, so we can expect a season 2 of it. And for those of you who watched it, you know at the very end, Joanne said that she was going to convert to Judaism, and this was at Miriam's bat mitzvah. And Noah also got offered the job of head rabbi at his temple. So in order to be head rabbi, you can't be dating or married to a non-Jewish woman. So she said that she was willing to convert. However, she went to him at the very end of the episode and said, I don't think I'm ready to do this. And she said, really honestly, she's not really in that place, and she doesn't want to pretend like she's something that she's not, and she doesn't want to make him choose. So she said, please don't follow me. She left. It looked like they were going to break up, but of course, everybody knew he was going to show up and they were going to have one final kiss. So we don't know exactly what the fate is of Joanne and Noah, but season 2 will tell us. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Did you like this series as much as I did? I may or may not have watched it twice. That's all I got for today, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you liked the video, please share it, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.